Welcome back to the On2 Axles channel, and I'm up in the historic city of Ayutthaya to bring in the next video on the BYD Sealion 7. Enjoy. Hey folks, welcome back. And today on the channel, I'd like to take you through the whole delivery day process, the day when I picked up my BYD Sealion 7 at the dealership. So I was waiting for that day for about 2.5 months, dating back to the Bangkok Auto Show. This was in end of November 2024, and that was the first time I sat in the Sealion. I'll give you some tips and insights along the way that maybe you'll find helpful yourself when you're picking up your car, whether it be a BYD Sealion or some other model of car. So at the Moto-Show, we checked the car out. Checked out a bunch of other models too, but they had a great promotion at the time. It was a 200,000 baht off. That's like what, 6,000 US dollars or so off the price. And then as well as that, the promotion included a year of insurance, free window tinting, and as well 50% off a home charger installation. So it was a pretty good deal. So we thought about it for a while, but we didn't make the decision then. And instead what we did is we decided to go to the dealership, and that's tip number one for you. If you don't have to make the deal at the Moto-Show, at least I didn't. I figured out the staff at the Moto-Show, who were the staff that worked at the dealership close to me where I wanted to go, and I made an appointment to meet up with them in a couple of days. And so we did that. We made the appointment, went into the dealership, met with the same staff, and then we had a lot more time to think and talk about the car and ask questions without all the noise and commotion of the busy Motor Show. So one of the things not included in the deal, which apparently is available in Europe, is this screen, privacy screen that you roll back to hide whatever you have in the rear of the car. That wasn't included. Apparently in Malaysia, when you buy this, you get a free karaoke microphone while supplies last. Well, that was not included. But for me, those two items were not a big deal. They were not a deal maker, that's for sure. So we took the car on a test drive, and everything felt great. The ride was great. I loved the interior, super well done, very nicely finished, very high quality interior, very good ride, comfortable, quiet, oodles and oodles of power. The only thing I didn't like on the test drive is I couldn't really fully test out the automated driving, the automated features, the ADAS system as they call it. So I wasn't quite sure if that was up to par, but everything else looked really good, and it was such good value for money that we thought, okay, probably. Now we didn't purchase it yet, but we put down a deposit of about 10,000 baht, 250, 300 US dollars, refundable, to hold the price for us for at least a couple of weeks. And in that time, what we did is we went around to other dealerships in the area and test drove and checked out a lot of the competitors to the Sealion 7, just to make sure, okay, are we making the right decision? In those 2 weeks, we test drove a bunch of other vehicles. We went to Ion and test drove a couple of their models. We also checked out the MG4, the D-Pile S7, which I really like the looks of. We test drove the Xpeng G6. We even test drove the Seal, from which this emerged. This is the bigger, stronger, but perhaps less sportier brother of the Seal. And all of those cars had some great features and benefits, but a lot of them, the prices were much higher than this was going to be. And this car just came out on top every time, in every comparison, as really good value for money with a lot of the features that we really wanted. So after a few weeks of test driving, we confirmed with the dealership, yes, we're going to buy it, put us on the order sheet. And then the waiting began. The sales staff were not quite as helpful as I would have liked. Initially, we were told, oh, it'll be a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks later, we were told, oh, it'll be sorry, it'll be the beginning of January. So, all right, beginning of January rolled around. Nope, it's going to be the end of January. The end of January rolled around, and mid-February, and they didn't seem to really know when the car was going to be here. Eventually, it was the first week of March or so that the car finally arrived at the dealership, coming in on a ro-ro ship from BYD's Changzhou factory near Shanghai. The car actually arrived on Thursday, and the sales staff gave me a shout out because they knew how anxious I was to see the car and check it out. So I actually first saw it on Thursday when it had just arrived, like literally right off the truck, and it was still kind of dirty. It had a lot of the stickers on it from shipping, but I had a quick look around and confirmed, yes, this looks good. And I could have actually said, no, I don't want this one, and then waited for another model to roll in. But everything looked fine at that preliminary inspection, so we confirmed, yes, that's it. And at the same time, we said, okay, we're going to go with a 60% window tint on the sides and the top and the back, and then a 40% tint on the front. And so the dealer confirmed they were going to need a few days to make that happen. Put the tint on the windows, get the car a good clean, get it ready for delivery, charge it to full for me, and they said Sunday it should be ready, but if it's ready earlier, maybe Saturday, we'll give you a call. And so that's what happened. They called me Saturday and said it's ready, Saturday afternoon, and I'm on the way to pick it up. Now, in the meantime, I had gone to the bank and made a cashier's check and delivered that on Friday because I didn't want to be carrying that thing around and perhaps lose it. So I dropped off the cashier's check on Friday, and actually I was able to have another look at the car as it was being detailed and set up for me. And it's kind of cool that I was able to access the workshop area of the dealership and see what was happening. I even noticed the wall chargers they were using at the dealership and made a mental note to maybe try to get that model when I did the home installation. One thing that surprised me when I saw the car I think it was on the Thursday, is there was already 24 kilometers on the odometer, but talking to others, I found out that actually is pretty normal, that you might expect it to have anywhere from 15 to 30 kilometers on the clock when you first go to pick it up. And I guess the amount of driving from the assembly line to holding lots to the ro-ro ship and then eventually to other holding lots and so on just takes time and adds up. So here we are, about to walk into the dealership, and I can see the car off to my left there with its pretty red bow waiting for me in the delivery room. So the first thing I did was a walk around to the car just to see if there was anything obviously wrong, damage to the paint, doors that didn't align properly, anything that looked wrong. This would be my chance to show that, and before I signed anything, and either reject this model or have them deal with it. So I did that. I also jumped in the car and checked out the electronics as best we could. Couldn't really operate the windows because the tint takes a week to adhere, so you're not allowed to move the windows up and down in that time. But all right, so that brings me to tip number 2. Before taking delivery, try to talk to people who have already done that, who have taken delivery of the model that you're after, or from the dealership that you're working with, or both. And that's not hard to do. There are Facebook groups for the Sealion 7, and just through friend network, you're bound to connect with someone who's had some experience with the delivery process, and then you're going to maybe find out some issues and some things you should look for. And I did that and found out a couple of things that to look for. A little bit more on that later, because I didn't discover this until after I had the car for a day or so. But a tip I did pick up, which I think is a good one, and should work with any car. Check out the VIN number. The VIN number is on the lower right of the dash, but it's also around the car in several locations, under the hood, inside door pillars, in the back. And just confirm that the VIN number you see in one place matches everywhere else. Just to make sure there hasn't been any hanky-panky monkey business with panels being swapped out, perhaps due to damage or something like that. Everything was good with this, but that would be my third top tip for you. The next challenge was linking the phone app, the BYD app, to the car, and that was a bit of a hassle. You see, they never asked me for an email address. I wasn't aware I needed to provide one. They used an email that we'd been using for correspondence, but it's not our main email, and it's not the one I was going to use. So when it came time to sync the car to the phone, couldn't do it. Now, the sales gal said it would be 3 days for that to get sorted out. You can guess what happened. 3 days later, it wasn't sorted out. Messaging back and forth, it took a lot of work. I had to visit the dealership again. Finally got it to work, and in the process is my next tip for you, and that is learn about other people who work at the dealership and cultivate other contacts. That's because the sales gal I was working with wasn't really, I got the feeling she was new, and there's a high turnover of sales staff. She hadn't been with BYD very long. Prior to that, she'd worked with MG. She drove a Mazda. Eventually, I linked up with this other fella who had been there a little bit longer, seemed to know his stuff, owned a BYD himself. So that's a good tip. Know several sales staff contact details, so if one disappears into the ether, you've got yourself a backup. The issue with the app, by the way, turned out to be, once we got the email sorted, is I had set Great Britain thinking that was the language, and that instead was the region that the car was operating in. I didn't realize that. So once I chose the correct region, everything was cool. All right, so we're on the final stage now. We've got some paperwork to do. There was a ton of forms for me to sign related to insurance, the license plates, delivery inspection, what have you. By the way, those red plates that you see on the vehicle are temporary. They're not the permanent plates, which will arrive apparently in a few months. So it took us probably a good 20 minutes of sitting here at the dealership and going through these forms one by one and signing over and over and over again until everything was done, and we were finally on our way. I should also say we received 2 key fobs and a NFC card. And here's a tip: take note of the little tag that appears with the key fobs. Take a photo of that and file that tag away with the number on it. And should you need to replace or get a new key fob at some point, you're going to need that code and that's written on that little tag. Anyways, that done. We removed some of the protective covering on the seats, though I left some of the protective film on the screens, and we were off. That's a very cool feeling, driving your car out of the dealership for the first time, and your senses are heightened and every moment is something to treasure. A very cool experience, and that's what came next. The next day we took the car to a detailing shop. We had a ceramic coat applied across the whole vehicle, and over the bonnet here and across the front face we had an extra layer of protective plastic wrapped in there to protect it from the flotsam and jetsam of the roads, and just to avoid any nasty stone chips and damage that are eventually probably going to happen. So that's done. The car looked great, but in the process, the shop where we went, who were amazing by the way, I'll put the link in the description, they sent us a bunch of photos of damage that they had found after they gave the car a first wash down. Lots of little scratches and defects, things that almost invisible to the eye, but they found them. Most of them I didn't worry too much about, and I knew they could clean them off. But there were a couple of scuff marks, especially down here on some of this hard plastic here at the front. There were some pretty big scuff marks that were pretty ugly once you saw them. So what we did is we took the car right back to the dealership and showed them this, and they were very apologetic about it and said that they would do something about it. We're still waiting to find out exactly what they're going to do. But the thing is, if we hadn't taken the car back, if we hadn't noticed this, it would have been too late. And since it was within 24 hours, it was literally the next day we took the car back, and so the dealership was very open to investigating, you know, what's this all about and dealing with it. But somebody along the way at some point in time had done some work to hide these blemishes so that on delivery day we wouldn't really have anything to complain about. Anyways, the detailing shop did a great job of making the car look amazing and covering up these scuff marks very nicely, so we're quite happy with that. But that's another tip for you, is don't hesitate. Within 24 hours, take that car back. Speaking of which, we did check out with some Facebook groups and found out that there is an issue with some missing bolts. So when we took the car back with the scuff mark, we had them raise the car on the lift and we could check underneath and confirm that this wasn't the case with our model. So there you have it, folks. We're really happy with the way things have worked out, and I hope this video has been somewhat helpful to you and gave you some helpful tips. And that experience, that first drive experience, I'm happy to say it hasn't worn off yet. I still feel like that first day when I rolled off the lot and drove the car. So hope the video was helpful to you, and let me know if you have any questions, comments, subscribe, whatever, and I'll try to reply as often as I can. All right, guys, have a great day. Talk to you later.